Food for thought. This is a massive part of healing or bringing yourself into balance, whatever you want to, however you want to call that space. Amazing. I start to do this live stream and the phone goes. Bear with me. Oh my goodness. Couldn't make this stuff up, could you? So food for thought. This is all about the part that food, nutrition play in healing. Got to get my thoughts back in place here. And it's not about the science. It's not about, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of wonderful nutrition information, books, dietitians, nutritionists. There's loads out there that we can educate ourselves with. But this is about the role that plays overall, food plays overall in healing. And a little bit about my story and food. I have this could go on for days. I have a very long, involved story and relationship with food, and which goes back to my teenage years. So it goes way back before cancer, before getting diagnosed with cancer. And I want to talk about that because there's so much out there on the internet about this is the right diet and that is the right diet. And it's best not to eat meat and it's best to eat meat. And it can be really confusing for people to make individual, intuitive, unique choices for their own bodies. And that is the only thing that should come into your decision making around food, is what is right for you and your system. And that is going to change over time. That is massively going to change over time. So I'm going to go all the way back to my teens when I was doing a lot of ballet and I had a very distorted body image. And I would say now I was borderline anorexic. I was avoiding food and creating all kinds of issues with my relationship with my body and obviously nourishing myself. Fast forward, and I think it was 16, I decided to become vegetarian, something like that. And that turned out not to be the right diet for my system. And this is important because particularly at that time, we're talking 30 years ago plus, at that time, vegetarianism was the thing, especially when I arrived out in California. And I had to go on a whole journey of discovering it actually wasn't right for my system. In my 20s, I had horrendous menstrual hemorrhaging, which conventional medicine couldn't get to the bottom of. And that was the beginning of my relationship with holistic healing, spiritual healing. It was also part of how I started to discover that I needed to eat a diet with animal protein in. And that is when my body started to get well. And I've taught, I've shared this story over the years, and I've had people say, oh, but you could have got it from, no, I tried everything else except eating meat, because philosophically I was aligned with not eating meat. But it was when I started eating meat at that point that my system healed. I started to recover. I was able to, my life force energy was able to kick on and do some important healing in the body. So this is really important because that was absolutely right. Now, I then went a little bit further, another 5 or so years down the line, and I was diagnosed with cancer, the cervical cancer. And I realized that, again, I needed to tweak my diet to suit where I was at that time. And so I went on a very strict vegan diet for probably about 6 months, which was what was advocated for tumours in the body, in that they feed off of sugar, salt, fat. And so it's eradicating all of that. which was an interesting experience for me because my body, I had done a lot of healing around eating in my 20s. And if anybody has issues with your relationship with food, look up Janine Roth. She is amazing and has done a lot of work over the past 30 years about our relationship with food from not just a nutritional space, but from, and it's an emotional space, particularly for us as women. So I had, I knew I needed to do something different at that time. So I went into this vegan diet. And what I discovered, because I'd healed my relationship with food and I was in a healthy place with it, I actually didn't want to go into a restrictive place anymore with food. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to restrict what I was eating, but I did. And I did that for 6 months and it was a good move at that point. And then when I was finished with that time period, I went back to eating chicken and fish and had a more rounded diet that suited my body overall. Now, I'm telling these stories because what I want to illustrate is, firstly, your body is not one way for the whole of your life. Secondly, no one diet is going to fit every single person or for the entirety of your life. And you may need to adjust things as you go through life to sort whatever you're going through. And so, and then I now eat a variety of foods. I have noticed that my body is happiest eating good sources of animal protein and high amounts of vegetables. It does not like starch, and it absolutely hates rice. just for FYI. It doesn't do well with grain generally, but I can eat some. So and this is years and years of looking into diets and what feels best for my body. So again, I'm sharing the story to get you to look at yourself, and are you eating in an aligned way for your body, soul, emotions, and your mental self? Is all of that aligned? Because it's not just going to be one piece of the story. Philosophically, I wanted to be a vegetarian, but physically, that doesn't suit me. And what helped me with that was learning about the Native Americans and how they were respectful of the spirit of animals in choosing to eat animals. So this helped me get aligned with what my system needed. And again, this is going to be different for everybody. And I think food is a very emotional arena for a lot of people. People get very het up about it. And defending their choices and then sometimes trying to project those choices onto the rest of the world. And that's something I completely disagree with. I think it's very unique to our bodies, and you may not stay that way for your entire life. You may need to shift again, as I have done, shifted many times. And so part of when I was going through cancer and making those choices was, what is aligned for me in this moment? What is aligned for me in going through cancer? And then as I was coming out of that, what is now aligned? Because there was a point at which I was ready to bring chicken back into my diet. And overall, that is what my system needed and responds to. So I would advocate that you get educated about what food does in the body, and then you find your intuitive space in making those choices. So it's a combination of education and intuition that's going to give you the correct diet. One of the best books I ever read that helped me understand food was a book called Potatoes Not Prozac. We're talking 30 years ago. It was actually a book written about sugar addiction and aimed at alcoholics, but it taught me how protein and carbohydrates worked in the body. And in reading that book, I suddenly understood why I needed to eat what I needed to eat. It was like, oh, because that helps that and that needs that. So look that book up if you're someone that has a complicated relationship with food and needs some help in just understanding, because there's a lot of information out there that tells us eat this diet, eat that diet. But sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to go, well, why am I doing that? What's that really about for my system? You know, there's a lot of, I do think there's a lot of information that says this is the healthy diet. No, this is the healthy diet. No, this is the healthy diet. And it's like, it's the one that's going to work for you ultimately. And I also believe we eat with our souls as well. We eat for the souls. And I'm a huge fan of dark chocolate. And, you know, I don't wish to be in a state of deprivation around food anymore. And I think that we find our best self and create our best balance in our entire system when we eat for the body, mind, spirit, and emotions. So it's not just one thing. So lots of information there. Let me know how you go with your relationship with food and your awareness around what nutrition works best in your system. Perhaps it's something that you have done copious amounts of research around. Perhaps it's something you've never even looked at. So now is the time to start. And if you want any help with opening up your intuition, I'm not going to pitch myself as a nutritionist, I'm not. But if you want any help with opening up your intuition to help you make these decisions, that I can help with. Message me the word ignite and we can have a chat. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're tuning in from.